We've been working on some arts and crafts style furniture and cabinets for the office here at the workshop, and it's a massive project with hundreds of pieces. Projects like this can be intimidating, but with proper planning and some small scale production tips, even a small shop can do big things. Last week we talked about what you can do in the design phase to reduce the possibility of error that can creep into large projects like this. Today we'll take a step further by discussing some tips on how to batch out your parts quickly and accurately. Let's begin with the step many people ignore to their peril. If you don't prepare your stock well, you'll pay for it later. This means ensuring your boards are flat and the ends and edges are all square so you have consistent reference surfaces when you begin cutting your parts to length and adding your joinery. This requires a little forethought. For example, it's critical that the stock for all identical parts in the project be of exactly the same thickness. And the best way to ensure this is to just mill it all at once with one planer setting. But milled stock does not always stay flat. If you don't use it up right away, it may cup again and require more milling, which then makes it thinner. So what do? I like to wrap unused milled boards and project parts in plastic to help keep the moisture levels stable and the boards flat until they can be used. If the project is very large though, it might not be practical to wrap all those parts in wood and plastic. So in that case, you may divide your project into groups of parts that you can mill together. While flat, straight boards are critical to accurate joinery cuts, after your joinery is cut, for example, your dovetails or your tenons, a little wood movement can then be tolerated because when you put those dovetails or mortise and tenon joints together, you can sometimes force things flat again. So, mill a batch of parts, then immediately cut the joinery, then mill another batch and immediately cut that joinery, and so on. If you require consistent thicknesses from batch to batch, use a caliper rather than the scale on your planer to ensure consistency. When ripping or cross-cutting parts to the final sizes, you want to ensure that each cut is consistent and each part is as interchangeable as possible. Feather boards are an excellent way to apply even pressure that you may not be able to do consistently with your hands. It'll hold that workpiece against the fence during the full cut. They also work great at the router table. Likewise, stop blocks ensure consistency when you're cutting identical groups of parts to length. But keep an eye out for dust buildup that may keep your part from fully seating against your stop. Stops can also be useful when you're cutting your joinery. Here at the table saw, I'm using the fence to ensure each tenon is of the same length. One of the most important lessons in woodworking is a little patience will always pay off in the end. It may take some extra effort to make a template or a jig, but these are excellent ways to ensure consistent project parts without errors. A template may be attached to part after part after part, using it to cut out sometimes the entire shape using a bearing-guided bit. And simple jigs, which you can make from little more than scraps, can ensure perfectly repeatable joinery, such as these mortises. Templates are also useful for batching out parts at the table saw quickly and safely. But for templates and jigs to work properly, they must be made with care and attention to detail. This small investment in time is nothing, though, compared to the cost of materials if you have to remake inconsistent project parts. Sometimes it's possible to stack parts together to perform a single operation on multiple pieces at once. For example, you might gang cut several project parts to the same length at the miter saw. If you must lay out lines on multiple identical parts, you may consider stacking them together, securing them with a clamp, and then marking your lines with your square. And double-sided tape or hot melt glue can be used to double up precise parts for cutting or for drilling them simultaneously. These are just some of the things we do to speed up projects that contain multiple parts and reduce our chances of error. If you keep an eye on how this project progresses over the next several weeks, we'll have even more lessons that you can apply to your next project. See you next time. Who says you can't get track saw quality cuts from a simple circular saw? Boratool's new WTX clamp edge guide system is light, it's easily portable, and it's far less expensive. And with the optional router and jigsaw attachments, the system's more versatile too. Check it out at the link in the notes below this video. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.